the things that people in the West often ask, especially if they've travelled to Southeast Asia, is why are there so many trans women in Southeast Asia? Why are they so obvious? And they are. Thailand's perhaps the best known. It's got, the latest estimate I saw suggests 1.2 million male to transsexuals, that's male to people who were born boys who appear as women. That's 2%, that's a lot. I would be surprised if it was any less in the Philippines. TS in the Philippines are perhaps, where they're normally called Becky, by the way, are perhaps a little bit less obvious than they are in Thailand, but there are plenty of very discreet TS women in Thailand that you just wouldn't know about. And a lot of the girls that you'll meet in the Philippines, if you meet girls, are TS. And you just don't know. You just won't know. And this question is then, why are there so many? Because, you know, in the West it's quite unusual, it's rare. For a long time, people in the West, the APA for example, thought it was low as 1 in 30,000, which we now know to be ridiculously low. So there's a question here, why are there so many? Now, interestingly, a friend of mine sent me a video on Facebook showing something that you will actually see. Any small village, any working class district, in just about all of Southeast Asia, you'll see what you're about to see in this very short little video clip, which shows an impromptu TS beauty contest, which has been set up on the street, you know, using sheets and, you know, it's a very simple thing. It's obviously an ordinary barangay in Thailand. I don't know exactly where it is, barangay in Philippines, I don't know exactly where it is because I can't really hear the language. But you'll see what happens, and this is why there are so many TS in Asia. This explains it.
Here we have a typical working class area in Southeast Asia somewhere. I don't know exactly where this is. This was sent to me by a friend who knew I'd be interested. This is the support network in action. Now look, this is maybe a boy, maybe 8, 9 years old. And listen to the crowd. You'll see the crowd in a minute. Listen to how supportive they are. They're cheering and shouting and whistling and a lot of ribald stuff going on. Everybody's having a great laugh. This is very entertaining. Notice that nobody is being against this. Nobody is trying to stop them. And you'll see adults coming in and maybe helping them with their costumes and, generally speaking, making it all a bit of fun. And this is why you see so many trans women in Asia. Because as children, they're taught that it's quite all right. If you want to appear to be a woman, if you want to be an icon of feminine sexuality, that's fine. And they're starting to do it at the age, some of the youngest of these is probably about 6. There you go, there's an adult. Just, you know, I don't know whether she's helping or trying to just tease. But nobody is being nasty about it. There's no men coming around saying, oh, you can't do this, you must stop. Try to imagine what would happen if a bunch of kids set a show like this up in any street, in any working class area at all in the West. They'd be thrashed within an inch of their lives. It just wouldn't happen. They would be taken apart. Men would come in and destroy this. They would just break it up. They would stop it happening. And that's because of homophobia. That's because of the intense homophobia of the West, which nobody ever talks about, but which is one of the most pervasive characteristics of Western culture. Here, in Southeast Asia, homophobia doesn't really exist, at least as it's known in the West. It's quite all right for children to do this. And, you know, you go to any mall on a day at school when there's no school on. There's the crowd there. Now, look, everybody is having a great time. It's all very happy. Nobody's causing a trouble. But notice, no men. This is all women and other gender non-conforming children. Right? Girls, women, non-conforming kids. All together, having a laugh, having a great time. The guys are probably drinking beer around the block. They're coming nowhere near this because they know if they try and start any trouble, the women will stop them. They'll just say, no, you're not coming around here to spoil our fun. You let the kids alone to get on with what they're doing. And as I say, you go to any mall on a day off school and you'll find dozens of kids like this. Running about, just being kids, you know, being incredibly girly and posing and sticking their hips out and doing the crooked elbow and all the rest of it. Now these kids, as I say, I think you're talking about somewhere between maybe 5, 6 and 9, 10 here. Give them another 10 years and these will be the girls that you see walking around Pattaya, walking around Burgos Street in Manila. Not all of them will become sex workers by any means, but those that there are, that's where they get their start. That's where they start. And the ones who are really good at it, who really get successful, they'll go on to use their ability to appear to be women to make a career out of it. Whether it's in theatre, in much more professional and formal versions of this sort of thing, in cabaret, or whether it's in by performing and taking part in much more professional beauty contests, which are held all over the place. Look, here's a kid. He'll probably be in 3 or 4 years. He'll have joined this pageant. He's obviously interested. So you see, being gender non-conforming, being Becky in the Philippines, being Katoy in Thailand, it's an icon.
I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a great laugh. That should show you what you need to know. That is the support network that I've talked about elsewhere. In the Philippines it's called Becky culture. Thailand you've got Katoy culture. Indonesia you've got Baria culture. You've got different equivalent versions of the same thing throughout the region. And that thing is a support network by which, or through which, gender non-conforming boys can develop into trans women without any problems. They don't have to deal with homophobia, they don't have to deal with assault, they don't have to deal with any of that because they're supported. Now that's not to say they have an easy life, they don't. It's not to say there's no discrimination. There is discrimination, even in Thailand, which is often regarded as, a paradise for TS. Trans women living there will tell you, yeah, we still have discrimination. It's good, it's quite open, but there are still things we're not allowed to do, still things we can't do. They can't change their names legally, things like that. And there is some remnant of social antagonism, which still goes on, social rejection, which still goes on. In the Philippines it's far worse because it's a Catholic country. Thailand is Buddhist, along with Vietnam and Cambodia and many other places. And these tend to be quite non-judgmental because Buddhists believe that it is up to the individual. It's up to you to make your life work. You are going to be responsible for yourself. Buddhism is not prescriptive in the way that Christianity is, Catholicism. Catholicism is extremely judgmental. Yet there are huge numbers of trans women, absolutely huge numbers. This explains why. Because during those crucial developmental years, from 6, say, to 12, when people's sexuality and their sexual desires and their understanding of their own selves as what they are is being formed, these cultures are able to support GNC boys, gender non-conforming boys, in a way that just does not happen in the West. And as I said in the voiceover there, what you've just seen, try to imagine that happening in the West. I mean, either older teenage boys or men would come in and smash it up. They just would. It would be destroyed. It wouldn't be allowed to happen. And that's really the difference. And what it tells you is that the problem with the West, and the West is a dysfunctional culture. Understand this. Western culture, US culture, is a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. It's dysfunctional. It will destroy the planet. It does destroy lives. Homophobia is one of the central means by which the patriarchy in the West forces its will on people. It forces conformism. It forces you to be, in a certain way, and not to ever stretch the boundaries in any way whatsoever. And if you do, it will either beat you or kill you. It's that simple. That's what happens. People get killed for being gay. People get killed for being gender non-conforming. It doesn't happen in Asia. It just doesn't. In Asia, young GNC boys, developing transsexuals, are treated with love. They're admired. They make people smile. It's all seen as just okay, it's fine, it's cool, who cares? And that video clip is really interesting piece. Done in daylight, which it's very unusual to see them done in daylight, usually done at night, and it's really dark and very, very difficult to get good video. So that's why I've showed you that, because it's really clear as to what's happening. And you go to Asia, you'll see these everywhere. They just happen everywhere. And that is why there are so many glamorous, beautiful, really beautiful trans women in Asia. They start being trans women very, very young. when they're just, long before puberty. And in terms of the Blanchards that we've talked about, which really is obvious in the West, in Asia it's really obscure, because these kids all want to be women, and a lot of them will be attracted to men, from the off. But for a lot of them, it's the whole thing. They want to be women, and wanting to have male lovers comes as a result of that. So whether they're primary HSTAS or autogynephilic becomes very obscure. It's not easy to see the differences, but they are there. They are there. You will, once you get to know them, you'll be able to understand that, oh, well, wait a minute, she's of this class and she's of this class. And it's the point I'm making is that, yes, there are huge numbers of trans women in Asia, and the real underlying reason is there's no homophobia. That's it. That's really it. They're just allowed to do what they want to do and get on with it. So there. And I hope you found that interesting. I certainly did. I thought that was I've seen it, but really, really dark and horrible video. That was a very good example of it done in daylight. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope it answers that question for you.